The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor. Then came the slap, sharp, deliberate, meant to put me in my place. His mother stood there, satisfied. My husband froze. But what they didn't know? I wasn't just some girl their son married. I was about to remind them exactly who I was. Before we dive into this story, if you love tales about standing up for yourself and watching karma work in real time, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Trust me, you'll want to see how this plays out. Now, let me take you back to that night. I need you to understand something right from the start. I'm not the kind of woman who goes looking for trouble. I'm a pharmaceutical executive, worked my way up from nothing, put myself through college and grad school. By the time I was 32, I was running research divisions and making decisions that affected millions of patients. I knew my worth. But somehow, I'd let myself forget it when I walked into that family. His name is Trevor. We met 3 years ago at a charity gala in Manhattan. He was handsome, charming, and when he looked at me across that ballroom, I felt seen in a way I hadn't in years. He didn't lead with his money, didn't drop the fact that he was running a real estate development empire worth billions. We just talked about books, about dreams, about the kind of lives we wanted to build. 6 months later, he proposed on a rooftop in Brooklyn, and I said yes without hesitation. The wedding was beautiful, small, intimate, exactly what we wanted. But even then, I could feel the chill coming from his mother's side of the aisle. Catherine Wellington. Old money, old ways, and a smile that never quite reached her eyes when she looked at me. She made comments, subtle ones at first, asked where I was really from, even after I told her I grew up in Philadelphia, touched my natural curls without asking, like I was some kind of exotic pet. Called me articulate, like it was a surprise a black woman could string sentences together. Trevor always had an excuse. She's just traditional. She needs time to warm up. You know how mothers are with their sons. And I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that love would be enough, that patience would win her over. So I smiled through the comments, ignored the microaggressions, and kept my mouth shut. For 2 years, I made myself smaller, quieter, less threatening. I thought that's what you did for love. Then came the invitation. Catherine wanted to host a dinner at the family estate in Connecticut to celebrate our 2nd anniversary. Everything in me said no. My gut was screaming at me to decline, to come up with any excuse. But Trevor looked at me with those hopeful eyes and promised it would be different this time. "She's really trying," he said. "Give her one more chance." So I said yes, and I walked right into hell wearing my best dress. The Wellington estate is the kind of place you see in magazines. Rolling hills, manicured gardens, a mansion that's been in the family for 4 generations. When we pulled up that evening, Catherine was waiting on the front steps, wearing pearls and that same cold smile. She kissed Trevor on both cheeks, then turned to me and offered a limp handshake. "How nice of you to come," she said, like I was a guest instead of her daughter-in-law. Inside, the dining room table was set for 6. Trevor's father, Gerald, was there, quiet, always deferring to his wife. Trevor's sister, Amanda, who'd never been outright rude but never defended me either. And the staff, all people of color, who gave me these knowing looks as they served the first course. I saw myself in their eyes, and it broke something inside me. The microaggressions started before we even finished the salad. Catherine asked if the food was too complex for my palate, made a comment about how exotic I looked with my hair in its natural state, asked intrusive questions about my family, my upbringing, fishing for something she could use to confirm whatever prejudices she'd already decided were true. And Trevor? He just kept drinking his wine, looking uncomfortable but saying nothing. Then we got to the main course, and Catherine started talking about grandchildren. "I do hope you're planning to start a family soon," she said, dabbing her mouth with a napkin. "Though I suppose we'll have to see how the children turn out. Genetics can be so unpredictable when you're mixing bloodlines." The table went silent. Gerald cleared his throat. Amanda stared at her plate. Trevor shifted in his seat, but still said nothing. And something inside me just snapped into clarity. Not anger, clarity. I was done being silent. "Catherine," I said, keeping my voice level, "what exactly do you mean by that?" She blinked, surprised I'd challenged her. "I'm simply saying that the Wellington bloodline has certain characteristics we've maintained for generations. I'm sure you understand." "No," I said. "I don't understand. Why don't you explain it to me?" Her face flushed. She wasn't used to being questioned in her own home, especially not by someone she considered beneath her. "I don't appreciate your tone," she said. "Perhaps you're not accustomed to civilized dinner conversation, but in this family, we show respect." I set down my fork. "Respect goes both ways, Catherine, and I haven't seen much of it since I married your son." That's when Trevor finally spoke up. "Honey, maybe we should just..." "Just what, Trevor?" I turned to him. "Just sit here and smile while your mother insults me? While she questions whether our future children will be acceptable because I'm black?" Catherine's voice turned sharp. "How dare you? I have been nothing but welcoming to you. I opened my home..." "You've tolerated me," I interrupted. "There's a difference." I stood up from the table. I was done. I'd tried for 2 years to win this woman's approval, and I finally understood I never would, not because of anything I did or didn't do, but because of what I looked like. I grabbed my purse, ready to walk out and drive myself home. That's when Catherine stood up too. "You ungrateful little opportunist," she hissed. "You trapped my son, didn't you? Saw his money and his name and decided to cash in. Well, you don't belong here, and you never will." I turned back to face her. "I'm leaving," I said quietly. She grabbed my arm. Hard. "We're not finished." I pulled away from her grip. And that's when it happened. Her hand came across my face, a slap so hard it turned my head, so deliberate it echoed in that massive dining room. The sound seemed to freeze time itself. Nobody moved. Gerald's mouth fell open. Amanda gasped. Trevor sat there, his wineglass halfway to his lips, just staring. And Catherine stood there looking satisfied, like she'd finally put me in my place. I touched my cheek. It was burning. But I wasn't crying. I wasn't screaming. I was calm. Calmer than I'd been in 2 years. Because in that moment, everything became crystal clear. "Mrs. Wellington," I said softly, "do you know what I actually do for a living?" She blinked, confused by the question. "You work in pharmaceuticals, some executive position. Do you know the name of my company?" "I don't concern myself with BioCure Solutions," I said. "Have you heard of it?" Gerald's face went pale. He knew that name. Trevor was staring at me now, really looking at me for the first time all evening. "I don't just work there, Catherine. I own 40% equity in BioCure Solutions. I'm not an executive. I'm a founding partner and the vice president of research and development. The company is valued at just over $2 billion. The room was completely silent now. 6 months ago, I continued, Trevor's company submitted a bid for a massive development project, an $800 million medical complex in Boston. Your family's entire quarterly projection is built around securing that contract. Without it, your investors walk, and your stock price drops by about 30%. Gerald knows. Don't you, Gerald? Trevor's father nodded slowly, his face ashen. The anchor tenant for that complex, the company that makes the whole project viable, is BioCure Solutions. We agreed to a 20-year lease. The preliminary contracts have been in review for months, and do you know who has signature authority on those contracts? I pulled out my phone, brought up the documents, and turned the screen toward them. I do. J.L. Harris. That's the name I use for business. My mother's maiden name. Your son didn't know because we keep our finances separate. At your insistence, actually, Catherine. You wanted a prenup to protect the Wellington fortune from me, so we never combined our business interests. Trevor stood up so fast his chair fell backward. Wait, you're J.L. Harris? You've been in meetings with our board. You negotiated the terms. Oh my God. Your mother was so busy dismissing me, so certain I was just some opportunist looking for a rich husband, she never bothered to ask real questions, never bothered to see who I actually was. And you, I looked at Trevor, you were so afraid of standing up to her, you never told her the truth about what I'd accomplished. You just let her think I was… What? Lucky to have married into this family? Catherine's hands were shaking. This is absurd. You can't… I can, I said. And I am. I'm withdrawing BioCure Solutions from the development deal, effective immediately. My legal team will send formal notice Monday morning. No! Gerald jumped up. You can't do that. We have contracts, agreements… Preliminary agreements, I corrected. Nothing has been finalized, and I have every right to pull out during the review period. Check with your lawyers if you don't believe me. Trevor was just staring at me, the full weight of what was happening finally hitting him. Please, he said. Don't do this. We can fix this. Where was this energy when she slapped me, Trevor? Where were you when she spent 2 years making racist comments? When she questioned whether our children would be acceptable? My voice didn't rise. I didn't need to shout. You sat there. You've always sat there. You told me to be patient, to give her time, to understand that this is just how she is. Well, this is just how I am. I don't accept disrespect. Not anymore. Amanda was crying now. Do you have any idea what this will do to the family? My trust fund is tied to company performance. We'll lose everything. You'll lose some things, I said. Not everything. Let's not be dramatic. But yes, there will be consequences. And maybe that's exactly what this family needs. I looked at Catherine. For the first time since I'd met her, she looked scared. Small. The power dynamic had shifted so completely she didn't know what to do with herself. You slapped your son's wife tonight, I said quietly. But more than that, you slapped your son's future. Because Trevor and I are a package deal, you don't get to abuse me and still benefit from what I bring to the table. What do you want? Catherine's voice was barely a whisper. I want you to understand something, I said. I'm not some girl who got lucky. I'm not someone who needs this family or this money. I built myself. I made my own fortune. I chose to marry Trevor because I loved him, not because of what he had. But I won't set myself on fire to keep any of you warm. The silence that followed was deafening. However, I continued, I'm not unreasonable. The deal can proceed, under 3 conditions. Gerald grabbed a pen. Amanda leaned forward. Even Catherine was listening now. 1. Catherine publicly apologizes, not just to me, but to every Black woman who's ever had to smile through her racism. You're going to establish a scholarship fund, $2 million minimum, for Black women pursuing careers in STEM fields, and you're going to name it after my mother. Catherine's jaw clenched, but she nodded. 2. Trevor goes to therapy. Individual therapy to figure out why he's so afraid of his mother that he'd let his wife be abused, and couples therapy with me because our marriage needs serious work if it's going to survive. Trevor nodded immediately. Yes, whatever you need. 3. I never, ever attend another family function where I'm expected to smile through disrespect. If I come to this house again, it's because I'm treated like the family I legally am, with respect, with dignity. Or I don't come at all, and neither does my company. I looked at each of them. You have 48 hours to decide. Send your answer to my lawyer. And then I walked out. I walked down that grand hallway, past the portraits of generations of Wellingtons, past the staff who smiled at me with something that looked like pride. I got in my car and drove myself home while Trevor stayed behind with his family. His choice. The drive back to the city was the most peaceful I'd felt in 2 years. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was free. The next 48 hours were interesting. Catherine issued a public apology. You could tell every word hurt her to say, but she said them. She established the scholarship fund and named it the Louise Harris Memorial Scholarship, after my mother. Trevor called me crying, promising to do the work, to be better, to finally be the husband I deserved. And Gerald sent over revised contracts that were significantly more favorable to my company. Did the marriage survive? We're working on it. Trevor's in therapy, like I asked. We're in couples counseling. He's learning to set boundaries with his mother, and I'm learning whether I can trust him to keep them. Some days are better than others, but I'm not compromising who I am anymore. Not for him, not for anyone. The medical complex deal went through. My company is thriving. And Catherine? She keeps her distance now. She's polite when we do interact, respectful even, because she finally understands what it cost her to underestimate me. That slap was the best thing that ever happened to me. I know that sounds strange, but it's true. It woke me up. It reminded me that I'd spent 2 years shrinking myself, dimming my light, trying to make myself acceptable to people who were never going to accept me. And for what? For a peace that was never really peaceful? I'm a Black woman who built a billion-dollar company from the ground up. I'm brilliant at what I do. I'm successful, powerful, and I earned every bit of it. And I will never, ever apologize for taking up space again. So that's my story. The night I stopped making myself smaller for people who were determined to see me as less. The night I reminded a whole family that respect isn't optional and consequences are real. If this resonated with you, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me about a time you had to stand up for yourself. Have you ever been underestimated? Have you ever had to show someone exactly who they were dealing with? I want to hear your stories. Subscribe for more real talk stories about life, love, and knowing your worth. Remember, they can only underestimate you if you let them. Know your value, protect your peace, and never, ever let anyone make you feel less than what you are. You are enough. You've always been enough. And anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve access to you. Until next time, keep standing tall.